The Galactic Academy of Unified Sciences was the most famous school in the known galaxy, and it had welcomed students from over 300 different alien species for more than 1,000 years. But when Maya Torres walked through its crystal blue hallways on her very first morning, every single alien eye turned to watch her pass through the crowd. She was human, and that meant she was a Deathworlder. Her home planet, a small blue world called Earth, had been classified by the Galactic Survey as a Category 12 hazard planet, which was only 2 levels below the maximum danger rating, and the registration office at the Academy had required her to sign 17 separate legal documents before they would even consider her application for admission. Maya kept her head down as she walked, holding her data tablet close to her chest, like a shield against all the whispers and stares, and she tried to ignore the way students moved aside to let her pass, as if she were carrying some terrible disease that might spread to them if they got too close. She was 17 Earth years old, with long dark hair that she kept pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her brown eyes seemed to notice everything around her, even when she was pretending not to look. And she had worked harder than anyone else in her entire country to earn this scholarship. So she was not going to let a few alien students and their nervous whispers break her spirit on her very first day. "Is that really a Terran walking among us?" one student asked another, in a voice that was clearly meant to be heard. "I heard from my parent unit that they can run for many hours without ever stopping to rest," another student replied with fear in their voice. "My instructor told me they evolved as persistence predators on their death world, and they would chase their prey animals across entire continents until the prey simply collapsed from exhaustion and gave up the will to." Maya found her assigned seat in the very back corner of the Xenobiology lecture hall, which was a massive room shaped like a half-circle, with seats designed to fit a dozen different body types, ranging from tiny insect-like creatures to massive beings the size of Earth elephants. She adjusted her chair to fit her dense human bone structure and her heavy muscle tissue, which was much thicker than most galactic species, because Earth had a gravity rating that was nearly double the galactic average. And even when she was sitting completely still, she stood out from everyone around her, because her movements were too smooth, too confident, and too controlled. She did not flinch when sudden sounds echoed through the hall, and her eyes tracked movement across the room with a precision that made other students very uncomfortable. Because on Earth, failing to notice movement could mean death from a predator attack. A student named Crix, who belonged to a species called the Velorans, and had beautiful scales that shifted color in the light, along with 4 thin arms that ended in delicate fingers, leaned toward his companion and spoke in a low voice that he thought Maya could not hear. "She is living in our dormitory wing," Crix said to his friend. "That cannot be true," whispered his companion Xena, who was a Pelith with skin so transparent that you could see the soft glow of bioluminescent organs pulsing beneath her flesh like tiny stars. The Academy administration would never place a dangerous Deathworlder near standard students like us. "They did place her there. I saw the room assignment myself, and she is in room 7C, which is right next to the meditation garden where we go to relax after classes." A group of 5 students had been watching Maya from across the lecture hall ever since she had entered the room, and they were led by a tall alien named Torvin, who belonged to a proud species called the Kasari. They were intellectually superior to every other species in the galaxy. Torvin had an elongated skull that rose to a point at the back of his head, and he had 3 eyes arranged in a triangle on his face, and these features marked him as nobility among his kind, and in his entire life he had never encountered any species that he could not intimidate into submission with just a look and a few harsh words. Until this very moment. Maya glanced up from her studies and met his 3-eyed gaze across the crowded room, and she held that eye contact for exactly 2 seconds. Not long enough to be a challenge, but not short enough to be submission. And then she simply returned to reading her tablet as if he were not worth any more of her attention. Torvin felt his mandibles click together in irritation, because no one had ever dismissed him like that before, and he did not like the strange feeling it created in his chest. "After the lecture ends," he said quietly to himself, "his 4 followers, we are going to follow that human, and we are going to find out what makes her think she can look at me like that." His followers nodded in agreement, because they always agreed with whatever Torvin said, and they had helped him corner other new students before, when those students had failed to show him proper respect. The lecture began, and Professor Venn, an ancient being made entirely of crystalline structures that chimed when they moved, began explaining the biology of carbon-based lifeforms in a voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Maya took careful notes on everything the professor said, because she wanted to prove that she deserved her place at this academy just as much as anyone else. Even if her home planet was considered a nightmare world by galactic standards. She was aware of Torvin watching her throughout the entire 2-hour lecture, and she noticed his 4 followers glancing at her every few minutes, their positions, and their body language, and the subtle hand signals they made to each other when they thought no one was looking. Humans had evolved alongside predators far more dangerous than any alien bully, and they had learned millions of years ago to read the intent of a threat before that threat became an action, because the humans who had failed to develop this skill had simply been eaten by lions or wolves or bears, and they had not survived to pass on their genes to the next generation. So Maya knew exactly what was going to happen when the lecture ended and the artificial twilight settled over the academy's biodomes, and the students began filtering out in groups toward their dormitories. She knew those 5 students were going to follow her. She knew they were going to try to corner her somewhere private, and she knew that they had absolutely no idea what they were getting themselves into, because they had never met a real human before. Only heard stories about Deathworlders, and stories could never capture the full truth of what it meant to survive on a world that was actively trying to kill you every single moment of every single day. Maya finished packing her bag, slowly and deliberately, taking her time while other students rushed past her toward the exits, and she allowed herself a small smile that no one else could see. This was going to be an interesting evening. The artificial twilight had painted the academy's massive biodomes in shades of purple and deep blue by the time Maya finally left the lecture hall through the eastern exit, and the twin artificial moons that provided light for the station's night cycle had begun their slow rise above the engineered horizon. Students filtered past her in groups, their conversations creating a strange symphony of clicks and whistles and telepathic whispers that Maya could sense tickling at the edges of her mind like tiny feathers, and she kept her pace slow and steady as she took a winding path through the botanical gardens that separated the academic buildings from the dormitory wings. The plants in this section of the station had been engineered specifically for oxygen production, and their leaves were massive and colored a strange blue-green that earth plants could never achieve. And bioluminescent flowers cast soft pools of light across the stone walkways like tiny lanterns guiding travelers through the darkness. Behind her, exactly 40 meters back, Torvin and his group of 4 followers had begun their pursuit. "She knows we are following her," Crick said nervously, and his beautiful scales had shifted from their normal iridescent shimmer to a much darker blue color, which was a fear response that his species could not control no matter how hard they tried. "She is a human, not a telepath," Torvin replied in a voice that dripped with confidence and contempt. "She is simply walking home to her dormitory like any other student would do after a long day of lectures." "Then why has she not looked back at us even once since leaving the building?" Torvin's mandibles clicked together in what might have been amusement or might have been annoyance, and he increased his pace slightly. because prey animals do not want predators to know that they have been spotted, and she is hoping that if she pretends not to notice us, we will simply lose interest and go away. What Torvin did not understand, what none of them understood, was that Maya was not acting like prey at all. She was acting like a hunter, leading other hunters into a trap. Maya turned down a maintenance corridor that branched off from the main garden path, and the lights here were much dimmer than in the public areas, and the security cameras mounted on the walls were older models that the Academy had been meaning to replace for years, but had never gotten around to fixing. This corridor was perfect for a private conversation, or perfect for a confrontation that no one would witness, and Torvin smiled his strange alien smile when he saw where she was going. "She is making this easy for us," he said to his followers. "Spread out and move through the side passages, and cut off all the other exits so she cannot run away when we corner her." His 4 followers obeyed immediately, because they always obeyed Torvin without question. They slipped through narrow maintenance tunnels that branched off from the main corridor like the strands of a spider's web. Crix moved to the left, his forearms helping him climb over pipes and equipment with a grace that his fear could not diminish. And Xena floated through a ventilation shaft that was barely large enough for her translucent body. And the other 2 followers took parallel passages that would bring them out ahead of the human girl. They believed they were faster than her, because most galactic species were faster than humans in short bursts of speed. They believed they were more agile than her, because humans were known for their endurance rather than their flexibility. They believed they were better adapted to low-light environments, because human eyes were designed for bright daylight on their sunny homeworld. They had never hunted anything that knew how to hunt back. Maya stopped walking when she reached the exact center of the corridor, and she set her bag down carefully on the floor beside her feet. And she rolled her shoulders once, twice, loosening muscles that were denser and stronger than any alien on this station could imagine. Then she simply waited in the dim light, her breathing slow and steady, her heartbeat calm and regular, her eyes adjusting to the darkness with a speed that would have surprised her pursuers if they had been watching. The first security camera above her head flickered once, twice, and then its small red light went dark. The second camera, 20 meters further down the corridor, died in the same way. Then all of them, every single camera in this entire section of the maintenance level, went dark in a cascading wave that spread outward from Maya's position, like ripples in a pond after a stone has been thrown. The corridor plunged into complete darkness for exactly 3 seconds before the emergency lighting system activated, casting everything in a dim red glow that made the metal walls look like they were covered in blood. "What is happening?" Xena's voice came through the group's communication link, and it was high and trembling with a fear that she could not hide. "Why did all the lights go out at the same time?" Static answered her question. Because the communication system in this section had stopped working at the same moment as the cameras. Torvin felt the first tiny seed of doubt plant itself in his stomach as he moved through the corridor toward the place where he had last seen the human girl standing. The red emergency lights made everything look strange and unfamiliar, and shadows seemed to move at the edges of his vision in ways that shadows should not move. His species had evolved on a world of perpetual twilight, where the sun never rose above the horizon, and the only light came from bioluminescent plants and animals, and his 3 eyes could see in darkness that would have left other species completely blind. He should have had every possible advantage in this situation, but the human girl was gone. She had been standing right there, in the center of the corridor, just 30 seconds ago, and now there was nothing but empty space, and her bag sitting on the floor like a piece of bait in a trap. Torvin's mandibles clicked rapidly as he scanned the corridor in every direction, searching for any sign of movement, any hint of where she might have gone, and he found nothing but red-tinted shadows and the distant hum of the station's life support systems. Somewhere in the darkness, Maya Torres was smiling, and the expression on her face was not the smile of a frightened prey animal. It was the smile of a predator who had just realized that dinner had walked right into her den. Torvin moved through the maintenance corridor with a growing sense of unease that he had never experienced before in his entire privileged life. And the red emergency lighting cast long shadows across the metal walls that seemed to shift and twist whenever he was not looking directly at them. His 3 eyes should have given him perfect vision in this darkness, because his species had evolved on a twilight world where bright light was the exception rather than the rule, and he should have been able to spot any movement within 50 meters of his position. But the human girl had simply vanished, as if she had never existed at all, as if she had been nothing more than a ghost or a hallucination created by his own nervous mind. "Report your positions," he said into his communicator, speaking to his 4 followers who should have been moving through the parallel passages to cut off the humans' escape routes. Nothing answered him except the soft hiss of. He tried again, adjusting the frequency of his device. "Crix, Zena, respond to me immediately." More static, and then silence that seemed to press against his ears like physical weight. Torvin turned a corner in the corridor and found Crix sitting against the wall, with his 4 arms wrapped around his body and his scales bleached completely white, with a terror so profound that he looked like an entirely different person. "Crix, what happened to you? Why are you sitting on the floor like a frightened child?" Crix looked up at him with eyes that had gone wide and glassy. "She came out of nowhere, Torvin. I did not even hear her footsteps. I did not hear anything at all, and then she was just there, standing right behind me, close enough to touch." "That is impossible. Humans are loud and clumsy. Everyone knows they cannot move quietly." "She was like a shadow, Torvin. She was like something from the old nightmare stories that my parent units told me when I was young to make me behave." Crix's voice had dropped to a whisper that trembled with each word. She leaned in close to my ear, and I could feel her breath on my scales, and she said something to me. Torvin felt his own fear growing stronger, despite his best efforts to suppress it. "What did she say to you?" "She said that my scales change color when I am scared, and she said I should really work on controlling that response if I want to sneak up on people in the future." Crix pulled his arms tighter around himself. "And then she was gone again, Torvin. She just disappeared into the shadows like she had never been there at all." "That is not possible. She is just one human female. She weighs maybe 60 kilograms. She cannot simply appear and disappear like some kind of supernatural creature." A sound echoed through the corridor before Crix could respond, and it was soft and rhythmic and unmistakable. Footsteps. They were unhurried, casual, each one landing with the precise and measured cadence of something that had never needed to run from anything in its entire evolutionary history, and they echoed off the metal walls in a way that made it impossible to determine which direction they were coming from. Torvin spun in a circle, his 3 eyes scanning every shadow. "Show yourself, human. I know you are here somewhere." "I am right here," a voice said from behind him. He whirled around so fast that he nearly lost his balance, and Maya stood 3 meters away from him, with her hands in her pockets and her expression completely calm, as if she were standing in a sunny meadow rather than a dark maintenance corridor on a space station. The red emergency lights made her look like something from the ancient terror stories that the Kesari told their young children, tales of demons that walked between worlds and could not be stopped by any weapon or any prayer. "How did you move so quietly? How did you get past the cameras and the motion sensors without triggering any alarms?" Maya said in a voice that was steady and quiet. "I do not know why they malfunctioned at the exact moment when I happened to be walking through this corridor. And I certainly do not know why the communication systems stopped working at the same time. You are lying to me. Maybe I am lying, or maybe I am telling the truth, and maybe you will never know for certain which one it is. Maya took one small step forward, and Torvin found himself stepping backward without meaning to. What I do know is that you followed me into this dark place because you wanted to frighten me. I wanted to understand what makes humans think they deserve to be here among civilized species. We deserve to be here because we earned our place through hard work and determination, just like every other species in this academy. Torvin drew himself up to his full height, which was nearly 2 meters of Kessari nobility, with an elongated skull and 3 eyes that had intimidated countless other students before this moment. You come from a Deathworld, a planet so hostile and dangerous that the Galactic Survey classified it as uninhabitable for any reasonable form of life, and yet your species somehow managed to survive on that nightmare planet. Survive? Maya took another step forward, and again, Torvin found himself retreating without making a conscious choice to do so. We did not just survive on Earth, Torvin, we conquered it. We dominated every ecosystem. We hunted its most dangerous predators until they went extinct. We reshaped entire continents to suit our needs. We split atoms and walked on our moon, and reached out towards stars that no other species in the galaxy had the courage to approach. Your species is primitive and violent. Your species evolved on a garden world where food fell from the trees, and the weather was always pleasant, and nothing ever tried to eat you. Maya's voice remained calm and quiet, but there was something in her eyes now that made Torvin's fear grow colder and sharper with every word she spoke. Everything was easy for your people. Everything was provided, and you never had to fight for your survival, not even once in your entire evolutionary history. We are intellectually superior to every species in the known galaxy. You are so intellectually superior that 5 of you followed one 17-year-old girl into a dark corridor because you wanted to scare her, and now you are the one who is afraid. Maya's lips curved into a small smile that contained no warmth at all. Do you know what humans call a situation like this? Torvin could not make himself speak, could not make his mandibles form any words. We call it Tuesday, Maya said, because this is just another ordinary day for us. Station Security Officer Benix sat in the monitoring room and reviewed the footage from the maintenance corridor for the 4th time, his many-fingered pellet hands moving across the holographic control interface as he rewound and replayed the same 30-second segment, over and over again. This does not make any sense at all, he muttered to himself, while staring at the screen with growing frustration. His partner, a veteran security officer named Haas, who belonged to the Centauri species and had been working station security for over 40 years, leaned over his shoulder to look at the same footage. What exactly have you found that is bothering you so much? He asked. Camera 7 Alpha through Camera 7 Gamma all malfunctioned at exactly the same moment, at precisely 1847 hours station time, and the official report says it was caused by a power surge in that section of the maintenance level. Benix pulled up another screen showing power grid data. But there is absolutely no record of any power irregularity in the grid logs for that entire evening. Equipment failures happen all the time on a station this old. Benix, you know that as well as anyone. Not like this, Haas. Not like this at all. Benix pulled up a schematic diagram of the camera system and pointed at 3 separate circuits, highlighted in different colors. These cameras are installed on 3 completely different power circuits, and each one has its own independent backup power supply that should activate automatically if the main power fails. He tapped the screen to bring up a probability calculation. The mathematical odds of all of them failing at exactly the same moment, in exactly the same corridor section, for exactly 12 minutes before coming back online perfectly, are approximately 1 in 400 million. Haas studied the schematic with the careful attention of someone who had seen a lot of strange things during his long career. You suggesting happened in that corridor? Benix hesitated for a long moment before speaking. I am suggesting that someone wanted those cameras to stop recording, and I am suggesting that whoever it was has technical capabilities far beyond what any student at this academy should possess. The human girl's dormitory room is located at the far end of that exact corridor. I know that. I noticed it immediately when I started my investigation. And the incident report shows that Torvin and his group of followers were observed loitering near the eastern lecture halls at approximately the same time that the cameras went dark. I know that too, and I've been thinking about what it might mean for the past 3 hours. They exchanged a look that communicated a great deal without any words being spoken, because both of them had worked in law enforcement long enough to recognize when a situation was more complicated than it appeared on the surface. Surface. We should interview the human student and ask her what she saw, Haas said. I already conducted that interview 2 hours ago, Benix replied. She stated that she walked home from her lecture through the maintenance corridor because it is a shorter route to her dormitory, and she said she studied for approximately 1 hour after arriving, and then she went to bed early because she was tired from her first day of classes. And her dormitory access logs confirm this account? Her access logs show that she entered her room at precisely 19:02 hours. Haas performed a quick calculation in his head. That is exactly 15 minutes after the cameras went offline. Exactly 15 minutes. Not approximately, not roughly, but exactly 15 minutes down to the second. Haas walked over to his own workstation and pulled up Maya Torres's complete student file, and her academy identification photo showed a serious young face with dark hair and brown eyes that seemed to look through the camera lens rather than at it, as if she could see whoever was viewing her photo. Her academic records are impressive, Haas said while scrolling through the data. Top marks in xenobiology, advanced theoretical physics, and survival sciences, and her physical assessment scores are literally off the charts compared to galactic average baselines for students her age. He scrolled down further and stopped when he found a notation at the bottom of her file. There is an unusual note here from the Earth Embassy, and it says that she received a full scholarship from the Terran government with priority placement status and special observation protocols. Special observation by whom? The file does not say, and the notation is marked with a security classification level that I do not have clearance to access. Benix leaned back in his chair and rubbed his tired eyes with 3 of his fingers. You know what I think happened in that corridor, Haas? I think those Kasari students decided to follow the new human girl because they wanted to intimidate her, the way they have intimidated other students in the past. And what do you think happened next? I think they learned a very valuable lesson about the difference between being intelligent and being wise. And the cameras that all malfunctioned at exactly the same moment through some impossible coincidence? Hardware failure, Benix said, in a voice that made it clear he did not believe his own words. Random technical malfunction caused by aging equipment. Nothing more suspicious than that. But as he filed the incident report under the category of unresolved technical problems, Benix could not shake the uncomfortable feeling that he was missing something very important about this situation. Somewhere far away, on a small blue planet called Earth, in a secure government facility that did not appear on any official maps or records, a young technician named Katie Webb noted in her classified log that Remote Access Protocol 7C had been activated and deactivated successfully within expected parameters. The test results were satisfactory, and the asset designated as Maya Torres remained uncompromised and unaware of the support systems that had been put in place to protect her. Katie closed her log file and smiled to herself, because she had been monitoring Maya's progress ever since the girl had been selected for the scholarship program 3 years ago, and she was proud of how well Maya was adapting to her new environment. Maya did not know about the Watchers yet, did not know about the protocols, did not know about the silent guardians who monitored her situation from half a galaxy away. One day she would learn the full truth about her mission and her importance. Maya sat alone at a table in the Academy cafeteria the next morning, eating a breakfast that had been specially synthesized by the food preparation systems to match human nutritional requirements. And all around her, the other students of dozens of different alien species gave her a much wider distance than they had given her the day before. Word traveled fast on a space station, especially word about strange incidents in dark corridors. And the story of what had happened to Torvin and his group had spread through the student population like fire through dry grass. No one knew exactly what had occurred, because the security cameras had been offline, and the participants were not talking about the details. But everyone had noticed that Torvin no longer walked through the halls with his usual confident swagger. And everyone had seen the way Crix's scales refused to return to their normal color whenever he caught sight of the human girl. Hesitant steps, her bioluminescent organs pulsing with nervous blue light that flickered like candle flames in a gentle breeze. And she stopped a respectful distance away before speaking. "May I sit with you at your table?" Maya looked up from her food and gestured toward the empty seat across from her. "Sure, go ahead." The Pelith settled carefully into the chair, her translucent body seeming almost ghostly in the bright morning light that streamed through the cafeteria's massive windows, and she folded her delicate hands together on the table surface before speaking again. "I wanted to apologize to you for what happened yesterday, because I was part of the group that followed you through the gardens, and I know that what we did was wrong." "I know you were part of the group. I saw you, and I remembered your face." Zena's bioluminescent organs pulsed with a deeper shade of blue that indicated shame among her species. "We were wrong to follow you like that. And Torvin told us that we were just going to talk to you, that we just wanted to understand more about humans. But I know now that was not the truth at all. What do you think was going to happen if those cameras had not malfunctioned?" Zena was quiet for a long moment before answering. "I do not know for certain, but I think something bad would have happened, because Torvin has done similar things to other students before, the ones who are different or strange, the ones who do not fit in with the normal population. And nobody at this academy has ever tried to stop him from bullying other students. His family is very powerful and very wealthy, and they have made large donations to the academy over many generations, and so the administration tends to look the other way when Torvin does things that would get other students expelled." Maya nodded slowly and took another bite of her synthesized eggs, which tasted almost, but not quite, like the real eggs she had eaten back home on Earth. "Let me tell you something about humans that you might not know, Zena." The Pelith leaned forward, with curiosity overcoming her nervousness. "On our world, we have an old saying that goes like this: the tallest blade of grass is the first one to be cut down." Maya set down her eating utensil and looked directly into Zena's translucent eyes. "Do you understand what that saying means?" Zena shook her head. "It means that standing out from the crowd makes you a target for anyone who wants to cause trouble. But here is the interesting thing about humans. We stand out anyway, because we cannot help being different. We are too loud and too aggressive, and too stubborn and too resilient compared to other species." "So what did your people do about being targets?" "We learned something important over millions of years of evolution." Maya's voice remained calm and friendly, but there was something deeper underneath her. Words that made Zena feel very small. "We learned that if you are going to be a target no matter what you do, and you should be the kind of target that shoots back at anyone who aims at you. Is that what you did in the corridor last night? Did you shoot back at Torvin and the others?" Maya smiled, and it was a surprisingly warm expression that made her look younger and less intimidating. "I did not do anything at all, Zena. I simply walked home through a maintenance corridor because it was a shorter path to my dormitory, and the cameras malfunctioned because of some random technical problem, and Torvin and his friends got scared of the dark, because they have never experienced real darkness before. That is the official story. That is the only story, and I am going to keep telling it that way, no matter who asks me questions. Xena studied the human girl for a long silent moment, taking in the relaxed posture and the calm expression and the steady hands that did not tremble, even slightly. You are not what I expected when I heard that a Deathworlder was coming to our academy. What exactly did you expect me to be? I do not know. Something scarier, I suppose, because all the stories about Deathworlders make your species sound like monsters that destroy everything they touch. We are not monsters, Xena. We are survivors. And there is an important difference between those two things. Maya pushed her food tray to the side and leaned forward across the table. Do you want to know the real secret about humans? The thing that actually makes us dangerous? Xena nodded, her curiosity now completely overwhelming her earlier fear. It is not our physical strength, or our endurance, or our aggression, because there are plenty of species in the galaxy that are stronger, or faster, or more vicious than humans. Maya's voice dropped to a quieter tone that somehow made her words feel more significant. The thing that actually makes us dangerous. That makes us dangerous is that we remember everything, every single slight, and every betrayal, and every act of kindness. What do you mean by that? I mean that we remember the names and faces of people who hurt us, and we remember the names and faces of people who helped us, and we make absolutely certain that everyone gets exactly what they deserve in the end, no matter how long we have to wait for the opportunity. Maya stood up from the table and gathered her things into her bag, preparing to leave for her morning lectures. You came to me and apologized for what you did, and you admitted that it was wrong, without making excuses for yourself. And I am going to remember that about you, Xena, she said, while looking down at the pelith, with an expression that contained something like respect. I think you are probably a better person than the company you have been keeping, and I think you should find some new friends who will not drag you into dark corridors. To bully people who are different. She walked away from the table without waiting for a response. And the other students in the cafeteria parted around her like water, flowing around a stone in a river. Across the large room, Torvin sat at his usual table, with his 3 eyes fixed on the human girl, and his mandibles clicked together slowly as he watched her leave. He had spent the entire night unable to sleep, replaying those terrifying moments in the dark corridor over and over in his mind, remembering the way she had moved without making any sound at all, remembering the way she had spoken to him without any fear in her voice, remembering the absolute certainty in her words, when she had told him what his species had never learned about survival. He understood something now that he had not understood before yesterday. The galaxy was not afraid of humans simply because they came from a dangerous world full of predators and poison and natural threats. Disasters. The galaxy was afraid of humans because they had made that dangerous world afraid of them. Maya Torres was only 17 years old, and she had no political power and no family connections and no wealth to protect her. And she was completely alone on a station filled with species who viewed her as a curiosity at best and a threat at worst. And yet somehow, after everything that had happened, Torvin was the one who felt small and helpless. The security cameras in the cafeteria recorded everything that morning, capturing the students eating their breakfasts and having their conversations and maintaining careful distance from the dark-haired human girl who sat by herself at a corner table. But the footage from the maintenance corridor was gone forever, erased by whatever force had caused the cameras to malfunction at exactly the right moment. Some mysteries, it seemed, were meant to remain unsolved, and somewhere far away, on a blue planet that the galaxy called a Deathworld, the people who watched over Maya Torres smiled and made notes in classified files that would never be seen by anyone without the highest security clearances. Their girl was doing just fine.